Hi guys, in this video we're going to talk about forms, so how we can get form data using our DOM, and let's see how that works. Alright, the first thing that we want to do right here is to create like an input element over here and give it stuff like text, type is text, and I'll just give it an ID, and I say let this ID be equal to name. Then I'll create a button and let this button have something like submit. So now what I want to do now, let me load it. What I want to do now is that if I type my name, for example, Samuel here, and click submit, I want it to alert Samuel to pop out Samuel, right? So let's see how I can get this value so I can make it pop it out on alert. All right, let's try it. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to give this an click. So let me give it an click event. Let me bind it with a function, and the name of the function should be my form, for example, my form. So let me go ahead and create that function. Look, I'm creating this inside head. Just imagine. Don't try that at home. All right, let me paste it here. So let me create my script tag over here and create my function. So the function now will be function my form. So this is my form function. Then once they click here, it will bind it with this my form function. So right now I want to get the value of this name. So if I want to get the value of name, I'll say variable name is equal to documents dot get element by ID. The ID is name. Then to get the value, we say dot value. Then now I can alert the name once the input button is being submitted. So let's refresh. So if I type Samuel here and click on submit, I should be able to see Samuel. Likewise, anything I type here, if I type John and click on submit, I should be able to see John. So basically, that is one way we get the value of form element. Now let's treat another one. Let's treat select. Select is a special one. For select, let's say the ID of this select is let's call it courses. The first option should be select course. Then the second option should be something like HTML, and the third option should be something like CSS, right? So let's see how we can get the value of the select option when a user selects the form, right? So let me just delete this alert. So to get that, I'll say variable course, the selected course should be documents.get element by ID, courses, of course. So I'll not add dot value. Dot value won't work for select forms. So this is how we get it. So now I will now say variable selected course is equal to course dot options. So this will read the options to know which options were selected. So it comes in an array. So I want to get the index option that they selected. So I will say course dot selected index like this. Then I'll say dot text. So it will get the text of the selected index for me. So now I can alert selected course. So I can alert selected course. All right, let's see that. So if I roll, if I click on HTML here, I click on submit, I can alert HTML, right? If I click on CSS, I can alert CSS. All right, don't mind me, just the arrangement. This button should be the last thing here. That's why it's like that. So basically, that's how it works. You select any course, click submit, it alerts it. That's how we get the value for selected elements in a form. Then another one, apart from selected elements, we could also want to get the value for checkbox or radio buttons. So checkbox and radio buttons, they work alike. So let's say this is a checkbox. Let me create inputs. I'll call this type of this input is called what? Checkbox. Checkbox. I'll give it an ID. Let's say the ID of this checkbox is called what now? Let's just call it game. Game. So right here we're going to say PS4, right? For example. So let's do that. So for us to get the value to know if this checkbox is being selected, this is it here. So for us to know if this checkbox is being selected or not, so let's see how we can know if the checkbox is being selected. For example, now I can say something like P. Let me say you selected. Let me create a span here and give it an ID and say, let us give an ID of SEL, right? Select, short form for selection, right? All right, this is where it's going to appear if they selected a particular game. Where is it? Let me just create a drop down. Let me just create a BR tag here, so that's BR exactly. All right. So for us to do that, let me delete this. Let's come down a little bit. So let's say variable game is equal to document dot get element by ID. The ID is what now? Game, of course. Then dot check. So that's how we know if it is checked. So if it's checked, it's going to return true. If it's not checked, it's going to return false, right? So let's say checked, right? So I end it here, and I'll now add if statement like if game is equal to true. True means that it is selected, right? True means that it's selected. So we should say document dot get element by ID or ID. Now this SEL to input it in here. SEL dot inner HTML should be equal to game. It should be equal to PS4. Yeah, PS4, something like this. Alright, so it's gonna happen when they click the submit button. So something like this now. So you click here, you click on submit, you selected PS4. So something like that. So that is how you know when it is. If it's not selected, it's not going to show anything. You see, it's not selected. But once you select it and click on submit, it's going to say you selected PS4. So basically, so that's how we get for select. So select works, checkbox works the same way with radio buttons. This is how we get values for select, and this is how we get values for inputs like text, other inputs again, numbers, and the rest. So this is how we get their values. Now, one last thing I would love to take you about from is to prevent default submission. Let me just comment all of this. Let me comment all of this, and let me also comment all of this, right? So let me create a new form. Now, normally on HTML, it's covered that we create forms most of the time by binding them inside the form tag. And the form tag normally have two attributes. One, the method attributes, which determines how this form is going to be submitted, is either get or post most of the time. Then we have the action attribute, which determines where this form is going to be going to, the file that we're processing it, right? Then we can now have our inputs field here. For example, we could say text, and then let's say the ID now, for example, let's say the ID here is equal to name. Then we can now have our inputs tag again. Here we say submit. Then now we'll now say let the value be equal to submit, right? And the value is equal to submit. Now what this does is that this is a simple HTML form, no JavaScript yet. So this is how it is if I reload it. What this does is that once I submit it, it tries to submit this form, right? So because I didn't add any value to the any file location to the action attribute, so it's submitting it to this same page. So once you click on submit, it's still submitting it to this same page. So there's a way we can use JavaScript to determine the way this form is submitted and prevent the default method of submitting this form by using a function called onSubmit, right? So onSubmit is the event here, right? So I want to bind it to a particular form. So let's say we are binding it to this form here. Let's say we are binding it to this form class here. So I'm going to copy all of this and paste it inside of here. So we are binding it to this form class. So we're binding it to this form. Once you submit it now, you will try to process what is here. So one thing I want to show you right now is we can actually prevent the form from submitting, so we can validate the form using JavaScript. So if we want to do that, we'll use the event.preventDefault method. So we say event.preventDefault here is going to prevent the default submission of the form. Let me just show you something now. You see, before now, if we click on submit, it's attempting to submit it. You could see the file is reloading. But now that we have actually reloaded it, so once you want to submit now, you cannot submit the form anymore. So what it means that because we have prevented it from submitting using the event.preventDefault. So right now we can choose to alert this name. Now we can say variable name. We already have it here. Variable name document.getAnother by variable name.value. So we can choose to say alerts your name is, let me just concatenate it here, name. So once I type Samuel here, so we can prevent default submission to say the page say your name is Samuel, right? So we have prevent default submission. You could see the field is not clearing away. But if the event.preventDefault is not there, it's going to clear the field away. It's going to attempt submitting that form. It's going to attempt submitting the form. Once I do this, it's going to say your name is Samuel. But once I click OK, see it has submitted the form. So what event.preventDefault does is that it stops the regular action from not taking place. If I say name, once I click OK, your name is Samuel, it's not submitting. So that was one of the ways. Those are the ways you can choose to handle forms using in JavaScript via DOM manipulation. So all you need to do right now, so you can use the same tactics to validate forms using JavaScript to prevent the default submission, to check if a particular field is filled or not. If a particular field is not filled, you can alert this field is required. For example, now if I want to validate this field now, I cannot say if name is equal to, if the name is empty, it should say something now. It should alert your name is required, something like that. It should alert something like your name is required. So I save it, I come over here, I refresh. So if you don't fit any name, I'm coming, let me see. Yeah, I made any mistake. It's okay. Oh, there's an error here. So once you do that, it should tell me that your name field is required. So your name is required. So once you have your prevent default, so you can use this to validate forms to say your name is required. And if the name is being filled, you should go ahead to submit the form, right? But if the name is not filled and user click on submit, it should say your name is required. So we can use this strategy to validate our form fields. So I hope you enjoy this video on DOM manipulation. See you in my next video. I have some extras to give to you.